After the rogue attack was over, I went to the guest bathroom. After bathing, I went to the kitchen to get something to eat and bumped into Genevieve. We made our way to the kitchen and I made some chicken Alfredo for her and myself. We were eating and talking when I felt Alessandro's anger spike. His feelings ran through me like an electric current. I turned towards the window to see Alessandro with his foot on a boy's throat. I sighed getting up to go outside when I saw Alessandro say something to the boy, then walk away. I was relieved that it didn't turn into a fight as I sat back down on my chair. Alessandro walked into the kitchen not long after. "Hey mama," he said, placing a kiss on my cheek. "Hey," and Jen, he waved to Genevieve. "Hey, Alessandro," we both replied as I smiled at him proudly. "What's got you happy and smiling all of a sudden?" he questioned skeptically. "Nothing. I'm just proud of you for handling that situation without any extreme violence," I told him. "Wait, you saw that?" he asked surprised. "We both did," Genevieve answered. "And we're glad you didn't crush Mike's trachea," she said, smiling sheepishly. "Yeah, well, that's what he gets for calling Mom a heifer," he told us angrily. "Don't worry about anything, they say me Bambino, I could care less. Remember that we're only here for the wedding and we'll be gone soon," I told him. "I know, Mom, but Alpha Dumbass didn't hold up his end of the bargain, so if I kill someone, he can't have any issues with it." I chuckled at the nickname he gave Kashan. "Now, Alessandro, just let them be, they're not worth our time." "Okay, fine. I promise I won't harm anyone else." "Good," I replied, getting up to go to the sink. "Unless it's necessary," he continues. I stopped in my tracks and turned around glaring at him and Genevieve, who was trying and failing miserably to hide her chuckles. Ignoring them, I made my way to the sink to wash my dish out. Jermaine walked into the kitchen, and I felt my heart pick up a couple of paces. What is he doing here? I know Alessandro could feel my emotions based on the way he was looking at me, and if that wasn't bad enough, Genevieve kept laughing and taunting me through the mind link like a little child while I kept glaring at her. From the corner of my eyes, I could see Jermaine looking at me and my face would turn into a tomato every time our eyes meet. Okay guys, this weirdness is starting to creep me out. First of all, Mom stops acting like a blushing teenager. Every time Uncle Jermaine looks at you, it's weird. And Genevieve, quit holding in your laugh, your lungs might explode. And Uncle Jermaine, if you want to ask Mom on a date, just do it. I'm already tired of hearing Mom and Aunt Genevieve whisper about how much you guys like each other. Oh, and when you guys are gonna do the dirty, please don't do it in our room. And I also don't ever want to walk in on you guys kissing. That's gross. Alessandro suddenly blurted out while walking out of the kitchen, leaving us all with our mouths wide open. Close your mouths before you catch FLIs, Genevieve says, her face red from laughter. I didn't know that Alessandro had realized what was going on between Jermaine and me. I mean, there isn't anything going on, because I still haven't told him how I felt, but I should have known Alessandro would realize something. I swear that boy saw everything. By now the awkwardness in the kitchen was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Jermaine and I just stood there staring at each other, not saying a word, and from our expressions I could tell we both were still dealing with the shock of Alessandro's little rant earlier. I'm gonna give you guys some space to talk, so yeah, Genevieve muttered before running out the kitchen. I swear she's a kid trapped in a woman's body. The room was still awkward, so I decided to break the silence. Ugh, sorry about what Alessandro said. He's just messing around with us. So don't listen to him, because I don't want whoever it is you're dating to hear about this and think we're involved in anything. Everyone here already hates me for whatever reason. I don't want to give them another one to add to their list, I told him as I turned and walked away. I felt someone grab my hand. I turned to see Jermaine holding onto me as his emerald green eyes drew me in. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not dating anyone, and Alessandro's right. I do like you, he replied. I had to bite down on my lips to restrict the gasp that almost left my mouth. I mean, I know he was single based on Genevieve's stalking, and now he just confirmed it. Plus, he continued, I've always liked you, Rosalind, ever since we were in high school. But you never noticed me. You were always busy in the library or doing some type of schoolwork, so I never got the chance to tell you how I felt. And then that night at Keshaun's party, I spent the entire night looking for you, but I never saw you, and the next morning I went to New York to take over one of my dad's businesses. And then I found my mate. But if I'm being honest, even then I still thought of you. I always wished you were my mate. Don't get me wrong, I loved my mate, and when she died, it was like she took my soul with her. But then you came back and it was like life was thrown into my body again. But then I found out you were my brother's mate, and once again my heart was broken. And with everything that happened over the couple days, I wasn't planning on telling you how I felt, and yet here I am, he confessed, looking in my eyes. I could feel my heartbeats increase as shock washed over me. My mouth quivered as I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. My whole body was shaking as I stood there completely speechless, not knowing what to say. You don't have to say anything right now, Rosalind, and I understand if you don't feel the same way, but I just wanted you to know how I feel, he said, walking away. I don't know what took over me as I said, "Wait." This time it was my turn to stop him from leaving. I held onto his arms as I said, "I always liked you, but you were the kid that had everything, the brother of the soon-to-be alpha. You were basically at the top of the social triangle, and I was the future beta's nerdy sister, so I never dared to tell you how I felt. Then I met my mate, and we all know how that turned out. But the other day when we were talking in the woods, and you hugged me, I guess it brought back old memories and feelings. But we can't be together, seeing as my ex-mate is your brother and your parents hate me." I told him honestly, "Rosalind, if I cared about what my parents or my brother thought, do you think I would be here telling you how I felt? I know it's probably wrong to feel this way, but I can't help it. It's how I feel, and even if you don't want to be with me now, I won't stop until I have you," he said, stepping closer. Soon enough, he was directly in front of me, our faces only mere inches apart. I could feel his breath on my lips as I stared into his eyes. They held so many emotions I couldn't identify them all. My stomach erupted in butterflies as he brushed his thumb over my cheek. He moved closer, cupping my cheeks in his soft hands. And as he was about to put his lips on mine, I felt a surge of pain jolt through my body. I fell to the ground, clutching my heart. I knew the pain wasn't coming from me. It was Alessandro, and yet it felt as if it wasn't his pain either. "Rosalind, what's wrong?" Jermaine asked as he knelt beside me. "Alessandro," was all I said before I got up and ran to where I sensed my baby boy. He was in the garden, I'm in the front yard, so I ran with all my speed to find out what was wrong. I saw some people gathered around him, but I quickly pushed them aside to get to my baby. I almost fainted at the sight before me. Alessandro had his claws stuck in Jermaine's little sister's neck. "Alessandro, what the hell are you doing? I told you never to use that technique," I yelled. He was doing the forbidden technique. I thought of him for taking away someone's pain. It was something I learned from an old elder in the pack before she passed away, and I taught it to Alessandro for emergencies only. One look at the situation, and I knew what was going on, and even though I was proud that he was helping her by the second surge of pain that erupted through my body, I knew he was taking way too much of her pain at once, and this could kill him. But I couldn't interfere just like that, or it could kill them both. I would have to tap into their bond and get Alessandro to release himself. Just as I was about to tap into the bond, I saw someone's hand rip Alessandro's claws out of Isabel's neck as they both fell limp onto the ground. I looked up to see Keshaun's asshole of a father, and all I could feel at that moment was pure rage. "What the fuck is wrong with you? Do you know what you just died?" I yelled. "Yes, I know exactly what I did. I just saved my daughter from you psychopathic son," he replied. "You idiot. For someone who was once an alpha, I thought you would have more sense than this, but I can see idiocy runs in your family. My son was helping your daughter, you ungrateful son of a bitch. She was shifting and he was taking away her pain," I told the idiot standing in front of me. "You think I would believe your lies? The doctors told us that she won't be able to shift because of the injections she was taking to prevent it, because her body wouldn't be able to handle it," he yelled. As I was about to reply, I heard Izzy scream out as the final parts of her transformation took place. Everyone gasped as a brown wolf stood where Isabel lay only a few moments ago. People started to whisper and murmur about what was happening. I, however, had no interest in that because Alessandro was waking up. "Shift," I shouted at Izzy. Everyone looked at me as the little wolf whimpered from my command, "Just picture yourself in human form." I told her, realizing she wouldn't be able to shift on her own. When she shifted, someone wrapped a blanket around her, and her father picked her up in his arms. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he asked me. Ignoring him, I turned to Isabel, anger written all over my face as I laid Alessandro's head on my lap. "What the hell happened?" I asked Isabel. "I was in my room when I felt an excruciating pain in my spine and I screamed. Alessandro popped up at my door and asked me what was wrong. He then brought me outside and told me I was shifting, but I told him I couldn't, because the doctors took precautions to prevent it, but that is what was happening. And then he told me to tell him when I couldn't bear the pain anymore, and he would take it away. But I almost fainted before I could tell him. I then felt him stick his claws in my neck, and suddenly all the pain I felt vanished and I was becoming conscious again. I felt myself starting to transform, and then the pain came back when his claws were suddenly gone. But I had finished my transformation by then," she told us. "By the way, what happened to Alessandro? Why is he unconscious?" she asked worriedly. "Ask your father." I spit with venom as I took my son in my arms and walked back to the pack house. I sat in the reception area of the pack hospital. 2 hours. It's been 2 hours since Alessandro fainted. 2 hours since the doctor told me he was in a coma with no idea when he would wake up. 2 hours since I haven't spoken a word to anyone, other than calling Alpha Xander to tell him what happened. And 2 hours since my heart started aching. Michael was sitting in a chair across from me along with Genevieve, while Germaine sat in the chair next to me. No one said a word as we sat there in silence. "Rosalind," a small voice called out. I looked in the direction of the voice to see Isabel looking at me. "I'm so sorry, Rosalind. I didn't mean," she started, but I quickly stopped her with, "If you're gonna come here and tell me how sorry you are, and talk about how this is all your fault, trying to make this situation all about you, then don't, because I don't want to hear it." I told her not in the mood to talk to her or anyone in her family at this point. I hate them all. "What is wrong with you? My daughter is trying to apologize, and that's all you have to say to her." I then turned to look at the person I'm gonna kill first if my baby doesn't wake up. As I was about to answer him, I heard a noise coming from Alessandro's room. Then 3 nurses rushed past me. I ran to the room to see the doctor trying to resuscitate my baby, and his heart monitor was spiking. Then suddenly he flatlined. I screamed when I heard the monitor stop beeping. The doctor ordered someone to remove me from the room, but I was having none of it. I ran to his bedside and shook him, trying to get him to wake up. "Alessandro, please wake up. Don't leave me, my sweet boy. I can't endure this life without you. Please come back to me." I cried, but he still wouldn't wake up. I shook him some more, but he still wouldn't move. Then the next thing I did was shock everyone in the room. I slapped him. I slapped him across his right cheek and yelled, "Wake up." But nothing happened. The nurses pulled me towards the door, and as I was about to step out, his monitor started beeping again. I ripped my arms from the nurses and made my way to his bed once again. His eyes were still closed, but his heart was beating strong. "Please, Miss Parker, you have to give us space to work so we can help your son," the doctor pleaded. I nodded at him as I walked out of the room so they could work. Genevieve and Michael quickly bombarded me with questions the second they saw me. "What happened in there? Is Alessandro okay?" they asked at the same time. "He flatlined," I told them blankly. I could hear gasps from everyone. "He isn't," Genevieve started. "He's not dead, he's stable now, but the doctors still don't know when he'll be awake," I told them, walking back to my chair. "I'm so sorry, Rosalind, and I'll make sure the doctors do everything possible to help him," Kishan told me as he places his hand on my shoulder. I slapped his hand away from me and yelled, "This is all your father's damn fault." They all looked at me confused. Then he shouted, "How the hell is it my fault? I was trying to save my daughter. Your son had his claws in her neck." At this, everyone gasped. "You're such an idiot. I already told you he was taking away Isabel's pain, and you interrupted the process, causing him to fall into a coma. It was bad enough. He already took so much of her pain, but you had to interrupt them. And now even his wolf is unresponsive," I yelled. He scoffed, saying Alessandro should have minded his own business. At this, my anger was through the roof. I grabbed him by his neck. and slammed him into the wall. I then yanked on his arm, dislocating his shoulder, then snapped his wrist and elbow. Picking him up again, I threw him across the room, smiling when I heard the breaking of his bones. I quickly walked up to him and stepped into his windpipe, blocking off his air supply. I then sat on his stomach as I punched him repeatedly as rage consumed me. I got up again and held him by his throat when I was about to snap his neck. I was quickly pulled away from him, and I found myself in Michael's arms. "Rosalind, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Kishan yelled. I balanced myself and walked up to him menacingly. "Listen to my alpha, and listen well. If my son dies, I will kill everyone in this pack, starting with your father," I told him as I pushed him away and walked out of the pack hospital. I knew Genevieve was following me, but I didn't care at that point. I didn't care about anything else in this world. And if my baby boy dies, I will raise hell upon this land. That is a promise.